We've got one return guest, our friend Saad Yousuf from The Athletic, and making his debut on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, the man we affectionately refer to as No C, Patrik Walker from the Dallas Cowboys website. Gentlemen, thank you guys for being here. Let's get right into it. What are your reactions to this four-game start to the Cowboys season, 2-2, a win in New York that certainly looked better than what we had seen in weeks 2 and 3, but obviously also two rather important injuries coming out of that game as well. Patrik, I'll start with you. What is your assessment of where this team is right now?
Well, it's another year of September football for Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys. And we thought that being that this is year 2 of the McCarthy playbook offensively, I spoke with Dak at several points during the training camp, Brandon Cooks, Mike McCarthy, and CeeDee Lamb when he reported not necessarily training camp, but when he got there, asked them about the comfort level in year 2. And that was the key word. A lot of them said they're comfortable. They can play, loose now. They can play more freely. It's not heavily as far as the installs are concerned, but that's not what we've seen. We've seen slow starts from the offense, much like we did last year. Looks like the Cowboys probably won't hit their offensive stride until maybe the bye week, a little bit before, maybe a little bit after when they go against the San Francisco 49ers. But when you take the offensive slow starts and you combine them with an unusual slow start by the defense, and I get it, it's a return of Mike Zimmer, but it's his first year back. Different personnel than what Dan Quinn had. There's no Dorrance Armstrong. There's no Dante Fowler. You lose Sam Williams to the torn ACL at the start of training camp. But can't be any excuses in the NFL, especially when you have such a seasoned defensive coordinator like Mike Zimmer. But for me, it's not the scheme as much as it is the lack of execution. So they're 2-2. Now they get to kind of have a fresh start, so to speak. They're not going in at 1-4, like Andrew said. That's 1-3. That's the good news. The bad news is you could easily be 3-1 at this point, and you're not. So you are keeping pace. The Philadelphia Eagles dropped their game today against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's good news for you. But again, you should be pulling away a little bit as the Eagles sit at 2-2. The 49ers are struggling, and now they have injuries. You're not taking advantage of it, and that's the biggest problem for me. But again, 2-2, much better than 1-3.
Saad, your thoughts?
Well, I think, a lot of the issues have been very predictable. It's stuff that we were looking at from literally March and April. I mean, the personnel at defensive tackle has not played well enough. I'm not sure that they did everything that they could have in the offseason, but Mazi Smith is coming off of his best game as a pro. That's a great sign. And the running game hasn't been up to par. And again, that is something that was very predictable to anybody that was watching the team make their moves throughout the offseason. So it's a lot of predictable issues that they have. I don't think it's anything that they can't overcome, especially in the context of the division, because the Eagles just look awful right now and the Giants are who they are. I think the Commanders could be a sneaky, interesting team, but at the same time, I think the Cowboys, they have their issues, but it's nothing that can't be overcome, especially given that they were able to escape New York without, yes, the 2 injuries to Lawrence and Parsons hurt, but they're not long-term season-ending injuries. That would have cast a much darker cloud than what is over them right now.
I'm intrigued by the Commanders, I am, but I agree in general it looks like the division is going to be mediocre at best. And to me, that's the biggest. If you're a Cowboys fan just kind of grasping for a positive here, it is, one, the fact that the division is so bad, and two, the reality of the Cowboys' schedule. Those injuries to Micah Parsons and to Marcus Lawrence, yes, they're going to be out for a little while here. They may both not miss another division game because the Cowboys don't play against another division opponent until November 10th. Those 6 games in division are going to be what decides who wins the NFC East. How you perform in those 6 games, the Cowboys at least have some time until the second of those 6 games comes around against the Eagles on November 10th. So there's at least something to grasp at if you're a Cowboys fan.
That's an excellent point, Mike. When you look at the timing of the injury to DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, this occurred going into a mini bye week. So although it looks like the foot sprain on DeMarcus Lawrence is going to hold him out for several weeks, TBD on what that timeline looks like. Is it 4 to 6? It might be around that time frame, but he's definitely an IR candidate, which means he'd be out a minimum of 4 games. Micah Parsons has been listed by Stephen Jones as week to week. Both of those players sought second opinions, but, in speaking with Micah and then hearing what Stephen Jones had to say to 105.3 The Fan this week following that injury, it sounds like Micah Parsons has at least a shot at taking the field against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, even if he doesn't, the fact that he's not immediately ruled out of that game tells you there's a greater shot that he might be on the field against the Detroit Lions when they come to town. And that's going to be critical for the Cowboys because that'll be their next home game to try to stave off this losing streak that they have at AT&T Stadium.
Saad, how do you feel like these injuries are going to impact them, especially over the next couple of games here?
Well, I think it's going to be a huge impact because, you like Patrik said, you lost Sam Williams in training camp. You had an exodus of talent on the defensive line in free agency as well. I think, you're all of a sudden, Marshawn Nealon, I mean, you were trying to break in the rookie to make sure that, maybe in the second year he's able to hit his stride and stuff, but they're going to be looking at him. They're going to be looking at veteran guys like Carl Lawson and Linval Joseph and those kind of guys. I know Joseph more on the interior, but they're going to be looking at a lot of help to come from a lot of different areas, a lot of different players. There's no replacing Micah Parsons. I mean, this is a guy who was a top 3 talent in terms of Defensive Player of the Year voting in each of his 3 years in the NFL. DeMarcus Lawrence might be one of the most underrated players on this football team, especially against the run, which they weren't doing great against the run with Lawrence. So
right.
It's not great without him. So it's going to take everybody, but I think that a lot of it is going to fall on a lot of different players and also Zimmer to adjust to see how he can make the talent get the best out of the talent that he has at hand.
What all of that really means is the Cowboys aren't going to have a pass rush, if we're really being honest, over the course of the next couple of games, and their run defense is going to struggle significantly, even more than we've seen it struggle so far this season, at least over the course of the next couple of weeks before they get to that bye week that they all of a sudden need so badly.
Cowboys, next couple games here. We thought looking over the last couple of weeks, tough defenses, running games that they were going to head up to. So run defense is going to be critical, but the Steelers just lost a bit of a head scratcher to the Colts considering their up and down start. And the Lions have been anything but really impressive, I think. They've shown some holes over the course of this. So how should Cowboys fans, especially heading into the Steelers matchup, which I think is going to be the more winnable of the two, what do you think they should expect here?
I feel like for me to sit here and act like I know what to tell them to expect is a fool's errand with the way that we've seen this NFL season begin. Who knows, man? Who's good in this league right now? It's really hard to nail down who's actually a good football team in the. I mean, there are a couple of exceptions,
sure,
teams that have really started well, but not many. A lot of it is teams that we thought were going to be good that, maybe, kind of. Yeah. Who knows? The Steelers looked like they were starting off really well. Then they lose, like you're saying, kind of a head-scratching game to Indianapolis. I agree. I agree that of the two, I look at it that Pittsburgh's the more winnable football game because I'm not sure that they're real, and I'm more inclined to believe that Detroit is real. But it's at this point, it's hard to say that we know much of anything about what's really happening with this season.
Saad, you're heading into Pittsburgh. What's your main thought?
Well, I think they looked extremely vulnerable today, and I think to Mike's point, I don't know what exactly to make of that. To piggyback off of that, the two undefeated teams in the NFC, their quarterbacks are Geno Smith and Sam Darnold. So, I mean, it's just everything that you thought was going to be the way that this NFL season goes. It's not followed that script. And so it's hard to predict. But I will say that as vulnerable as the Steelers do look right now, playing in Pittsburgh is always tough. It's also something the Cowboys are not super used to. The last time Dak played in Pittsburgh was his rookie year in 2016.
Great
Obviously,
game.
he missed the 2020 matchup. Yes, the Ezekiel Elliott finish in that game. But Dak hasn't played there, and the Cowboys obviously only play there once every like 4 years or whatever it is, once every 8 years maybe. So
8, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, for the Cowboys, that's going to be the challenge, more so the conditions of that game. But in terms of the team itself, it's hard to predict.
Yeah, when I see somebody tweeting, I forget who it was that I saw tweeted this, something along the lines of the Vikings defense is playing awesome and Sam Darnold is balling. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? Who? This NFL season to this point does not make sense. No, see, what do you think about what these next 2 weeks could look like for Dallas before they get to the bye week?
Well, first of all, I think it's, as everybody predicted, Sam Darnold for NFL MVP, right? But when it comes to the Steelers matchup, for me, my eyes continually go to the Cowboys offensive line. Can this Cowboys offensive line, this revamped offensive line that includes two starting rookies and Cooper Beebe at center and Tyler Guyton over at left tackle, which version of this O-line are we going to see? Are we going to see the version that held up really nicely against one of the better defensive fronts in Dexter Lawrence and company against the New York Giants? Or is it going to be the one that was more or less a turnstile against the Baltimore Ravens and the New Orleans Saints and allowed a ton of pressure against Dak Prescott? And now you're going up against T.J. Watt and company. That's no easy task, to say the least. So if you can buy Dak Prescott some time, and I'm talking Terrence Steele on the edge, I'm talking Tyler Guyton, Cooper Beebe acquitted himself much better in last game. No pressures allowed after allowing 3 pressures in the previous game. If that offensive line can hold up, I believe that the Steelers secondary, while it's not one of the easier ones to go against, I believe if you extend those coverage windows, CeeDee Lamb, who is now starting to catch some fire, Jake Ferguson is starting to get back into his groove after missing that game with that mild MCL sprain. Where does Brandon Cooks come into play in this game? None of those questions get answered if you cannot stop T.J. Watt and that defensive front.
Your use of the word pressure makes me want to ask the three of you a question, because I feel like the answer to this question is yes, but I wonder where each of you sit. Is this the most pressure, big picture to produce, that has ever been on the shoulders of Dak Prescott during his Dallas Cowboys career? The injuries to Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, the issues that have been had with this defense, big picture, the fact that they're probably going to have to go out and score 35. If the Cowboys are going to get to Philadelphia on November 10th around 500, we're going to have to look back over the prior month and say, okay, there were 2 or 3 times where Dak just straight up carried this football team to a win.
Interesting. Saad, you jump in first.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. I think it is, because for a couple reasons. I think, in the past, sometimes he's had a veteran center there to set the protections, do all that. He needs to kind of be bringing Cooper Beebe along right now. His left tackle, I think Tyler Guyton's been fine, but he needs to get some of those holdings penalties fixed up. I think Brandon Cooks is, to me, honestly, one of the biggest question marks right now on this team. I saw Michael Irvin chiming in on Twitter as well, just about Brandon Cooks needs to be better about pushing and taking the top off the defense, using his speed as an asset. You can't just have CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson as your options. And then now Dak also doesn't have a running game, and his coach is in the final year of his contract. So when you ask that question of, is this the most pressure Dak Prescott has faced, you're bringing around the center, you're having a new change on your blind side, your wide receiver has a question mark, your coach is in last year. I think absolutely it is.
I'm going to jump in here and say the easy answer, which is he's the highest paid quarterback in the league. So yes, absolutely, this is the most pressure just from the money alone. Patrik, your thoughts?
And that's exactly where I was going to go with it, Andrew. Look at his contract. And whether it be fair or unfair, as far as contextually breaking down the fact that it takes an entire team to win a Super Bowl, which is 100% true. That's the science of the matter. But when you talk about the court of public opinion doesn't care about science. It cares about the optics. And the optics are that Dak Prescott is the highest paid quarterback, which means he's the highest paid player in NFL history as recently as a few weeks ago. So that's still, his money is still very fresh in everyone's mind. So the public is not going to care about the defense struggling. We will, as analysts, we'll break that down and we'll say, well, Dak Prescott needs to be better here, but he was carrying the team here. The defense needs to be better. That's our job. That's what we're going to do. But again, court of public opinion, all they're going to do is look at his contract and keep pointing at that and saying it doesn't matter